Welcome to Oddball. I'm Amin Elhassan, and this is our trade deadline recap show. I don't know about you guys. I hate this time of year. I'm so glad that it's over. There are so many transactions, so many acquisitions that we got to get through. We're going to try and get through all of them. But first of all, we got to mention an acquisition that we did here. It's official. Izzy Gutierrez is now the permanent co-host on Oddball. Izzy, here's your intro press conference. Go.
Thank you. I'm normally a 3-and-D guy, but I guess I can play a larger role here because there's only two of us.
That does work like that. I once did a show called No Look Pass, and I said, you can't have a no look pass in a 2-on-2 game. You just can't. Where are you looking?
That's a great point. You should have changed the name. But we don't have too much time because there's a lot of trades that happen, even though you hate them. You hate this time of year. But man, this Jimmy Butler one ended up being pretty interesting. Right. It seemed like it was Phoenix or bust. Ends up being the Golden State Warriors. And the Golden State Warriors got Jimmy Butler, and that was Shams originally breaking the tweet. Those are breaking the news. Those are some of the names involved there. But really all you need to know, as far as we're concerned, the Warriors get Jimmy Butler. The Miami Heat get Andrew Wiggins and a first-round pick. They end up flipping PJ Tucker for Davion Mitchell, so they have Davion Mitchell as well. And the crazy interesting part about this was that it wasn't but 48 hours ago, where Jimmy's camp was sending out signals that he wouldn't re-sign with the Warriors. Don't trade for me. It was seemingly, like I said, Phoenix or bust. And then something changed. And that something was probably Kevin Durant not being able to be moved from Phoenix. And it seemed like Jimmy Butler only had one option, and that was to re-sign with the Warriors. It also felt like the Warriors had to settle because they were talking about going after any potential all-star, and settled for Jimmy Butler in that they had to re-sign him and commit to him for another couple of years. So it felt like a little bit of lose-lose on both sides, even though it seems like a pretty good trade for the Warriors.
It's funny. It's only lose-lose because at one point or another yesterday, both teams, the Heat and the Warriors, thought they were going to get Kevin Durant. That's right. Why it's lose-lose, right? The Warriors like, oh my God, we get Kevin Durant back. And then Kevin Durant leaks basically, hey, I'm not trying to go back there. So the Warriors like, shucks. Then the Heat are like, holy shit, does this mean we can get Kevin Durant straight up in a one-on-one? And then the Suns are like, you don't have enough to give up. So then the Heat and the Warriors, like two scorned people at the club at the end, when the lights came on at 2 a.m, they're like, are you going home with anybody? No? You want to go home with me? All right. Let's make it happen. And make it happen, they did it. And for both of those teams, if you remove the possibility of getting Kevin Durant, I'm not mad at these deals. These are actually decent deals that they can look back on and say, yeah, we improved our teams. But it's just the specter of, but you could have gone home with Kevin Durant, that makes all of it feel a little bit more icky, Izzy.
Well, that part's interesting to me is, why not the Warriors if you're Kevin Durant? I know my answer. My answer would be, frankly, because it's just not a good look for him to go back to the place that he succeeded, right? Like, it was... The idea when he got there was, oh, I can't believe you have to go to that team. They just won 73 games. They're, you're just putting them over the top. You're making them too good. Win 2 championships, right? Now he leaves in a huff. I'm going to go do this in Brooklyn. It didn't really work out. I'm going to go do this in Phoenix. It didn't really work out. It kind of has the feel, it would kind of have the feel of him coming back home with his tail between his legs. Says, oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't win anywhere else. I'm going to have to win here again. That's what it felt. That's the only reason I would say it wouldn't be a reunion that Kevin Durant would be interested in.
I would have gone the opposite. I would have gone like, look who's come crawling back, begging for my services to save you again. That's what I would have thought Kevin Durant would have felt there, not like, oh, I've failed and now I have to go back. Because it's not like he requested this. They came after him. But I think ultimately the no, it has nothing to do with any of those things. It has to do with, I don't think he particularly enjoys playing that style. I mean, he did it, they were successful, but Kevin Durant left because he wanted something different. And he's found something different in Brooklyn and Phoenix. And obviously he wants the success that goes along with that. He doesn't want to go back to doing it the way that he wasn't particularly fond of by the end of his tenure. Again, I have to preface this because Kevin Durant gets very sensitive when we quote unquote speak for him. Why can't you guys just talk about the game? I am talking about the game, bro.
Well, now you're doing a voice for him too. I don't know him.
I've never met him. I never had a conversation in person with him. I'm not speaking for him. I'm not pretending to speak for him. I got to do this
preamble,
preamble or whatever terms and conditions every time someone asks me, why do you think Kevin Durant did or did not do this? All right. Having said that, Jimmy Butler, He signs that 2-year extension, $112 million, Izzy. You said maybe it's because he figured out, I can't get to Phoenix, and so I might as well get my money somewhere. I think maybe it's when they leak, I'm not going to Golden State. Golden State says, okay, fine, we'll go up to this number. Whereas they maybe we're more comfortable with another number. But the most important thing here for both the Heat and the Warriors, Izzy, is as they've improved their rosters on the court, they have managed to dip below the first apron. Ladies and gentlemen, apron talk is back. That's right. That is the star of this trade deadline. It's not players, it's not teams, it's aprons.
Why does that feel dirty to me, below the first apron? I mean, what are you going to see under there? What does that do flexibility-wise for the Miami Heat? Like, what does that mean for them? Or is it just, hey, it's apron talk, we just got to get used to this new NBA, CBA?
Got to get used to this apron talk, baby. I could explain it, but honestly, I believe that 90% of people, 90% of fans, uber fans, super fans who are consuming content wherever they can, give me my NBA stuff, don't give a shit about aprons. They just want to know, can it happen? Can it not happen? And where the apron falls into that is kind of irrelevant to fandom. And I think it should. I don't think we should turn people's passions, people's favorite thing to their pastimes into homework. That's for me. That's for the capologists like Eric Pincus and Bobby Marks. That's certainly for people who work in the league. I think if you're a super fan of the NBA, you don't need to know all this Japanese or whatever you want to call it.
All right, well, let's go from apron talk to Chef Curry, because I actually think Jimmy's not going to be an issue over there. I know there's the reports of concerns and everything about his personality there. Like, Jimmy was perfectly fine as a third banana in Philly, as long as he had his moments, as long as he could, fit in, and as long as he got paid, right?
Right.
I'm of the opinion that once he's got his parameters set and he's got his money in place, you get the best version of Jimmy Butler. And while I don't think he's sort of matched naturally with his sort of basketball IQ and how he works with what the Warriors do, I don't think it's a natural fit. I think he can get there eventually to vibe with that offense, but I don't think he necessarily has to sometimes. I think what this team needs is a playoff performer, somebody who can, hey, if things aren't singing on the offense, I can take over at times. It's pretty much what Kevin Durant did. I don't think Jimmy Butler has that ability, but they need something like that here. So I think you're going to get the best version of him, and I don't see any real issues. I think him and Draymond are going to get along just fine.
Yeah, I think Kevin Durant fit their system a lot better, but also towards the end, like there's a stark difference between Kevin Durant year 1 and Kevin Durant year 3 in Golden State, in which they really had to rework a lot of the offense. And that's what I imagine here. The Warriors are going to have to rework their offense some. I'm not saying abandon and scrap it, but you've got Jimmy Butler. You've got to take advantage of what Jimmy Butler does well. And unlike acquiring Durant, where you could say, well, why are we scrapping our offense? It's the best offense that the league has ever seen. Right now, it's not so great. It's not something to be very particular, like, I have to stay faithful to this, like it's the 10 Commandments or something. So I imagine they're going to have to change some stuff. They're going to get some post-ups for Jimmy. They're going to get some stuff where maybe he's a screener. Maybe Steph Curry is screening for him. They're all different options and wrinkles that they can introduce into their offense now with Jimmy Butler coming on board. And then defensively, I think this is a big thing. He's an elite defensive player. 2, 3, 4. He guards it, and he guards it well, and he gives them some flexibility in that regard. But again, I think a lot of people mistake bad behaving Jimmy as this is who he is. Ladies and gentlemen, you go through his history. This is who he is when he feels like you're not paying me what I'm worth. When he gets compensated, and he just got compensated, like as he said, that's typically when you get the best version of him.
It does feel a little bit like, as opposed to like when you brought in Kevin Durant, it wasn't a whole lot of pressure on Kevin Durant. You just knew that team was going to be incredible.
Right.
When you brought in Andrew Wiggins, you didn't really know what you were going to get out of him. They ended up making an all-star out of him and won a championship there. Now it feels like this better work with Jimmy, because this is the tail end of Steph. This is, chasing that 5th championship. And he is the lone improvement that they made. And it's for the next 3 years. And so if it doesn't work, it's not only, missed opportunity maybe for Steph to finish his career on top, but also, hey, Jimmy, bad look. Like, just you ruined it for them, and you left Miami all in a huff as well.
listen to what Coach Kerr had to say about trading Andrew Wiggins, who was a big part of that championship.
Wiggs is one of my favorite players I've ever coached. Just a beautiful soul, just a wonderful human being, and we don't hang that banner in 22 without him. Just a wonderful human being.
They're sad, Izzy. They're sad to see Andrew Wiggins go.
Yeah, and that sort of adds to it, right? If Jimmy doesn't come in and become a beautiful soul himself, are they going to be angry with him? And I have a feeling he and Draymond are going to be lockstep. Like they're going to be a duo that changes games defensively and have similar personalities. I don't think it's going to be an issue.
You heard what Draymond said, right? They asked him how's it going to fit, and he said, "He wins, I win. There's your fit right there. We're both winners." And I'm like, you know what? It sounds ridiculous and simplistic, and also he's got a point. These are guys that put winning above everything other than being compensated. But once they're compensated, they put winning above everything. And I think you're right, Izzy. I think that part is the least concerning.
You know what's I think maybe because we've had so long to sort of chew on it with the Jimmy Butler stuff, not really shocked by the ending of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've had too much time to think about, hey, what was it? What is it going to be like? What can we look at the past 6 years or 5 years of Jimmy Butler as? And I think in terms of like Miami Heat fans, I think it's a sad situation that they have to see it end this way for him, given the type of joy that he brought, surprisingly, for this team over a 5-year span. But I think they're pretty satisfied with the way it worked out when their star, forced his way out and their organization stood strong, got themselves a decent player, an all-star in Andrew Wiggins. And you add Davion Mitchell, kind of look like a team that can distract you for the rest of the season and forget about, Jimmy being gone.
This is a Spo dream, a team that plays hard and is gritty and all that stuff and holds on to the rope and et cetera, et cetera. And, they'll be better because Jimmy really wasn't contributing as much this season, and particularly obviously since January 1. So you just gave them a whole lot of depth. So they'll be better in that regard. But, look, time heals all wounds. Dwayne Wade walked out of here very hurt, and it was a bad look on the organization. Alonzo Mourning walked out of here. Exactly. Not so great Shaq the first time around. Shaq. It all, over time, people go back and think fondly of these times when everything's said and done. His jersey is going to get retired because
because I was thinking about that. Like, this has to be one of those stories, right? Like, they have to come together, apologize, blah, blah, blah. We've seen this in sports, all over the place, but this has to be another one of those because it's not just going to be, hey, keep everything the same. And then, 3 years from now, yeah, let's go retire his jersey and pretend nothing happened, because there's obviously some hurt feelings there.
Yeah. All right. Turns out, by the way, Izzy, the Lakers were not done dealing either. They went out and they got Mark Williams from the Charlotte Hornets. In return, they sent Dalton Knecht, Cam Reddish, an unprotected 2031 first-round pick, and a 2030 pick swap potential to the Hornets. So they gave up a lot for Mark Williams, a lot more than we thought. He is what they needed in terms of a center. That we know they were looking for a center. They went out and got a center. Was he worth it?
Well, the way I see this, it's a need pickup, right? And if you combine the Luka deal with the Mark Williams deal and put the people that they gave up, you would say, oh yeah, that makes sense. It doesn't matter that Dalton Knecht is attached to Mark Williams and whatever. It is that group for this group. And I have a lot of questions about anybody who plays in Charlotte. Either they are being underutilized and wasting their career there, or putting up empty numbers and aren't really that good. I think, there's suggestions that Mark Williams doesn't play hard all the time, but I wonder if that's because you're in Charlotte and that, that's part of the problem. What's the motivation there? And so I think in terms of fit, 1,000%, it should work out. It should be the exact type of big that Luka loves playing with. And it is a lot of pressure for him to be the defensive anchor for a team that might not be the greatest defensive team, but I think it's a trade that I don't think twice about. I'm not even questioning one bit if they gave up too much for him.
So the fit, absolutely. The reporting is that Luka told Rob Pelinka, look, I thrive next to a lob threat. Go get me a lob threat. And that kind of shifts the conversation from Jonas Valanciunas and Nikola Vucevic, and it shifts it to Mark Williams, who way more fits that mold than those other two guys do. In terms of giving it all up, giving up too much. I think, first of all, you're right, Izzy. You have to look at it as a totality. You gave up Anthony Davis, Dalton Connect, Max Christie, 2 first-round picks and a pick swap for Luka and Mark Williams. That's the way to look at it. It's in a weird way, this may either be a great example or a terrible example. It's kind of like you look at what the Clippers did 5 years ago. They didn't give up 4 first-round picks and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Paul George. They gave up 4 first-round picks and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard because that was the only way Kawhi Leonard was going to come to the Clippers. Now, at the time, it was like, yeah, like these two guys are great. But obviously, they were not healthy through the period of 4 years they were together, and that thing ends up being a failure. And I was going to say, oh, that's completely different because it was such a failure because everyone got hurt. And then I thought about it. Luka's being traded because of concerns about his body long-term. Mark Williams is a guy who's missed a lot of time due to injuries in the first 3 years of his career. Dare I say, we might be in a situation 4 years from now where it's like, when they play, they're great. But the problem is they can't seem to stay healthy on the floor at the same time. And will we look back and say, damn, they gave a lot for Mark Williams?
Well, it's also a sort of advanced timeline because of LeBron's age. Like, I don't think, if you've got Luka at 25 without the pressure of winning for LeBron in the next year or two, that maybe you fill out the roster right away. Maybe you wait till the offseason to make the right moves. But this one just feels like it's classic Lakers. You got to win now, and then the year after that, and then the year after that. And if you don't, then blow it up.
Yep. Want to see Luka in a Laker jersey real quick?
Yes.
Huh. Here it is.
Look at that.
That's
exactly
77.
what I thought it would look like.
Yep. Thanks, DraftKings Sportsbook. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, there was more dealing and a wheeling. We'll talk about the Phoenix Suns, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and more.
I was born in 77.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to Oddball. Amin, Elhassan, Izzy Gutierrez, who just signed a 2-year, $112 million extension, apparently. I wasn't told.
I did?
I guess so. You're here to stay. All right. The Phoenix Suns, Izzy, after all that talk about, is Butler going to get there? Is Kevin Durant going to get traded in order for Butler to get there? They finally made a move. And that move, I'm not mad at. They traded Yusuf Nurkic and the 26 first-round pick in exchange for Cody Martin, Vasily Micic, and a 2026 second. Cody Martin, I actually posted this on Threads about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I begged for his emancipation from the basketball hell that is Charlotte, and now he's emancipated, man. Hey, the Hornets no longer represent you. You get to represent yourself over there in Phoenix. I think he helps them tremendously in terms of another defensive wing who can play multiple positions. And, a streaky shooter. He's not as good a shooter as his brother Caleb, but I think it still helps, no? And they got out of the Nurkic deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more concerned with the vibes around the Suns than the personnel. I mean, I guess it does help to get Nurkic out of there because he and Coach Bud weren't exactly the best of weren't exactly tight at the hip. And so, yeah, I wonder if the roster is going to find a way to make this work. I don't know if it's better built, but like Ramona Shelburne said that she used the word toxic for what that locker room was like. She said there was a mandate here. So you get something done, and they didn't get that done. And now they're just kind of looking at each other like, what are we going to do now? I don't know if this team has that kind of magical run that'll come from chemistry that they haven't found yet. I don't think moving Nurkic and bringing a Martin twin in is definitely going to do that for them. So this could end up being ugly where they end up rebuilding at the end of the season. Or the other option is, hey, they find something and work some magic in the postseason. That's the one element of Kevin Durant that you can never eliminate is, hey, can he carry your team through a postseason run? He definitely has the ability. So you kind of hold out hope for that.
Yeah, it's funny because as I think about it and I say, well, Kevin Durant, like, what does his kind of salary situation look like moving forward? You're going to have to make a decision one way or another. He's got one more year after this one, which is next year. And then you got to say to yourself, well, like, if we've decided that this thing isn't working, which seems pretty clear if you thought getting Jimmy Butler was the move to do, then you kind of have to start exploring now that where's kind of a possible landing spot? And I'm interested in whether those names change, right? Or does Golden State and or Miami, do they re-engage at the draft? Like, hey, I know we couldn't get it done at the trade deadline.
Fourth swing at Kevin Durant.
That would be swing number 5, I believe. He's already gone 4 times.
But he's fouled off a couple.
Yeah, a couple of check swings there as well.
That was another trade that I was pretty high on, and I think because all these big names got moved around, maybe it sort of flew under the radar. But the Cavs getting DeAndre Hunter. No. The Cavs getting DeAndre Hunter from the Hawks for Karis LeVert and George Niang and some picks. This is the top team in the Eastern Conference, the team that started the season 15-0, getting a 6th man of the year candidate. Like, it was probably him or Peyton Pritchard, right? And things I like about DeAndre Hunter, he seems very unflappable. And this Cavs team, while they are, talented, they're well coached, I don't think they have that really hard-nosed leader. I don't think they have that type of mentality necessarily. I feel like down the stretch where you got a DeAndre Hunter who could score, he can get some buckets, right? He had a 35-point game recently. When you can sort of put him in pressure situations and still, just give him the ball, let him go score. I feel like that's the type of person that they absolutely need, that they'll rely on. Not to say that, Mitchell and Garland can't be, crunch time scorers. Just feels like there's more efficiency there with Hunter and just a more variety. And you just know he's not going to collapse under pressure. At least that's the way I feel watching him play.
Yeah, it's a ballsy move. You have the best record in the East. You're vying for the best record in the league. Charles Oakley once went upstairs to the VP of basketball ops for the Knicks, a man named Frank Murphy, because there was a lot of talk about maybe we move this guy this way, whatever, and it works for the cap and whatever. And Charles Oakley went in there upstairs to the 14th floor of Two Penn Plaza in full warm-ups and game shoes and everything, and stood at Frank Murphy's office and said, "Money man, if it ain't broke, don't break it," which is now one of the famous NBA isms, Oakley-isms sayings. But there's a point to that where it's why mess with success?
But Karis LeVert was somebody who were trying to find the right role for him forever. He didn't actually fit perfectly, right? Niang is a nice role player, but I mean, if you get the production possibility from Hunter, I think it's a no-brainer.
Right. Look, those two guys, I'm not saying, oh my God, I can't believe you let go Karis LeVert. I'm just saying those guys were rotation players. You're the best team in the conference, and for most of the year, you're the best team in the league. You're going to trade 2 rotation players and a ton of draft capital, by the way. It's not just those 2 guys, for DeAndre Hunter, who has been very solid, great 3-point shooting, but also not quite the defensive player that he once was when he first came in this league.
But if you're going to upgrade at all, isn't this the type of move, right? You're on top of the league, you're on top of the conference. You're just wow, I really want to make sure that we stay here, make sure we make a run. This is the type of move you make. It doesn't disrupt too much because I still think you bring him off the bench. And so, you got a bench scorer and you got a guy that, hey, you can give him the ball late and trust that he is going to go get some. I really like it. I think it's the type of move they need.
What are the Hawks doing? What are the Hawks doing?
That's a great question. I think when Jalen Johnson got hurt, it sort of changed everything for them because he was sort of developing as Trae Young's guy, right? And I don't know if maybe they didn't think they wanted to go through the whole song and dance of, hey, maybe I can get in the play in and face the Knicks and get lucky. It's odd though. But it does kind of make sense if you think about it that way.
Chris Haynes tells us, or it was said on NBA TV today, saying things are murky around Trae Young. We know that he told us earlier this week that the Spurs had Trae Young in their sights. Maybe that's connected, maybe it's not, but things are murky around Trae Young. I don't know what the Hawks are doing. I know they'd also traded Bogdanovich to the Clippers for Trey Mann and Bones Highland. Via Diaz, I guess. Let's see. We don't have much time for anything else, but here is a quick recap for the trade deadline. Luka Doncic to the Lakers, De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs, Jimmy Butler to the Warriors, Brandon Ingram, we didn't talk about, to the Raptors, Zach LaVine to the Kings, Mark Williams to the Lakers, and DeAndre Hunter to the Cavaliers. Izzy, who won?
Well, that's what I think the trade deadline was the best trade deadline ever. Yeah. This is a photo of JFK smoking a cigarette, and that's exactly how I feel after this trade deadline. I don't think there's another one that compares. I'm probably mixing in off-season and trade deadline, but it feels like the best one ever.
I thought that was Stugatz, by the way, on your shirt.
No, different. Presidential, though.